Hey guys, welcome back to the Bargain Collector. I'm Jostin Ramon Thinney. Come on in, kick your feet up, hit the like, and definitely hit the subscribe. So during one of my recent library visits, I scored two films. One was a 4K starring Matthew McConaughey titled The Lincoln Lawyer, which I just recently did a review for, so go check that out. And the second was Barbarella, Queen of the Galaxy. She's out of this world. It came in this really cool slipcover, which I was telling you before. I had no idea what was going on here because I had no concept. I'd never seen the film, been told by lots and lots of people that I should see it, but I hadn't. And it definitely tells you a lot about, or reminds you of a lot of things that happen in the film. Namely, her wearing very little clothing pretty much the entire time, which is probably the reason so many people told me to watch it. And now that I'm thinking about it, after watching the movie, most of those people who told me to watch it were all men. So I get it. Moving on to the technical aspects of the film. One of the things right out of the gate is it was a BD50, which if many of you don't know about Blu-ray they usually come in at either BD25, which is a single layer disc, or they come in a BD50, which is a dual layer disc, and it gives them the ability to not only add more special features, but to also add a higher quality, higher bit rate file to the disc because it'll have more storage space. It was very, very sharp, incredibly sharp for it not to have been a 4K master that they made the Blu-ray from. And the film also sports a stereo mono track. So it's a 2.0 mono track. So in case you guys don't know, it basically means they take a mono track and they mirror it on the other side so that you're hearing it. It gives the illusion of it being stereo, but it's really just a dual mono. It's just on both channels, and that's how you hear it. But honestly, it sounded. Now, on to what the critical reception was of the film. Now, this was quite interesting because it seemed as though while the critics are divided, it's not kind of along the lines of what you might think. Because as I mentioned from the beginning, is a lot of people told me, man, you should really see Barbarella. And I said, well, why? And they would tell me this. They never really just came out right and said, dude, Jane Fonda. So seeing it, I thought that when I took a look at the critic scores and saw that it was divided, I thought it would have been divided amongst men and women, because while this was being portrayed as a feminist kind of a film, it really kind of was the opposite. So I thought for sure that that's how it's divided, but in actuality, it's divided amongst early critics of the film, those who saw it when it was released, versus those who are more modern critics. When it was released, most critics pretty much eviscerated the film. It was not kind. Now, don't get me wrong. There were those who did love the film, and they actually hoisted Jane Fonda up as being the sex kitten. That's what she became, the sex kitten of that era. That began her sex kitten era. All that being said, the critics largely panned the movie, and they talked about the cheaply made sets and everything else. I mean, they really dog walked the movie. But then you come into this modern era of critics, and they praise the film. And they praise the film for oftentimes the very opposite reasons that the early critics eviscerated the film. So it's just very interesting how time can change perspectives on films, on the same film. Nothing has changed. It's the same film. Just modern audiences have a different appreciation for it. Now, one of the funniest little things about the film, because I heard it and then I stopped myself and I was like, what? Is that the scientist that Barbarella is looking for his name is Durand. And I said, oh, they must be kind of poking fun at Durand. And no, this was before Duran Duran was a thing. And actually, Duran Duran saw the film, and that's where they got their name from. I mean, his had a D on the end, but still, that's where they got their name from. Here are my thoughts on the film. This movie is one of the strangest viewing experiences that I've had. And what I mean by that is, okay, the film starts and Barbarella is floating in space and she's removing her spacesuit. And if you know the film, then you already know. you you already know what removing the spacesuit means. When I'm looking at this scene, one of the very first things I noticed was the spaceship has shag carpeting all over the floor and the walls. And not like stone color or sand. It is like peanut butter shag carpeting. I was like, okay, man, this is like straight up 60s, like straight up 60s. And as we go through the film, I'd largely forgotten about a lot of films that were space movies made in the 50s and 60s, where it was their interpretation of what space travel would look like. And even on a movie like this, where it's a smaller film and it's a lower budget film, but they are doing the best they can with their money. And they're trying to show you this futuristic thing, or futuristic set. And all I kept thinking was, this is just the 60s. This is just the 60s. And there's nothing futuristic about any of this, like at all. At all. Even her outfits was like, they were the 60s outfits and just modified a little bit. Like, oh, instead of a tight corset, we're just gonna make it clear. And because in the future, clear corsets are a thing, I guess. It was just so wild and out there, yet so not really. And I think maybe that was what some of the critics had a problem with, was that the sets do feel cheap, right? They do. But let me back out of that. Let me back out of saying they felt cheap, because while you could tell that there was not as much funding for something like this, it felt charming in a way. It felt charming. It felt the kind of way, if any of you know me, you know I love 80s horror films. I love 80s horror and 90s horror, but 80s just, it's like soup for the soul. And part of it is you find these movies that do they have very tiny budgets, and they're trying to stretch it, and they're trying as hard as they can, and you find the charm in them trying so hard, and you know they're giving it all they have, and this is the best they can do. I find it charming, and I find it admirable that you gave it all you had, especially when you read this script. Like, come on, I just I don't know. I felt it was charming, and I felt, maybe because I'm part of this modern era of people who are giving their critique on the film, that I look at it and I say, come on, man, this is fun. This is fun. Like, how can you not find this fun? How can you not find Jane Fonda charming? She comes onto screen with this kind of wide-eyed innocence, and then at the same time, she has this incredible this thing about her that makes her incredibly attractive. And you buy into the attraction that everybody has to her, because I mean, it's clear, if you didn't look at her and you were attracted, definitely when she starts exuding what she needs to exude, which, by the way, I found out that was one of her special talents. In the film, the guy who calls her to give her the mission at the beginning of the film says, we need you to apply your skill set. You're the only one that can do this. And her skill set was essentially making guys attracted to her and being able to sleep with them and get whatever she wants out of them. That's her special skill. Oh my God, that's her special skill. That's her special skill. Anyway, so much like this film, I don't want to overstate my welcome. This movie comes in at a lean 98 minutes. I mean lean. It definitely keeps your attention. She definitely keeps your attention. I can't believe that I've never watched a movie with Jane Fonda. I don't think I've ever watched a movie with her. I grew up watching her as a workout video lady. Never knew she was an actress, and later found out, later she was a politician, and I found out she was an actress, but never sought out any of her films. This was a great introduction to her, and let's get into my thoughts on whether or not this will be added to my very limited library. So, Barbarella, Queen of the Galaxy. Does it have shelf appeal? I mean, look at it. Spot gloss on her as well as her name up here. It has an excellent kind of postery look on the inside. That's pretty cool. And that even that even has spot gloss. It has spot gloss on her, on this person here, on Pygar here. Yeah. Spine is pretty cool. The back of it is nice. Even it has the same here, but it doesn't have reversible art. But maybe that wasn't me. That's still not a very common thing to have reversible art. But all in all, very nice packaging. It is, I don't know if you can see, but it is in immaculate condition. No wear really on this thing. A really, really solid Blu-ray. So does it have shelf appeal? Yeah. Now, was it entertaining? I don't even think you have to ask me if it's entertaining. I think that's pretty much a given. It was entertaining. I thoroughly enjoyed it for reasons that you already know, as well as reasons you don't know. Because I play in the low budget film category, I'm always amazed at what people can do when they're stretching their budgets, when they're trying to make it work for them to do whatever it is they need to do. And I felt like they really did a wonderful job stretching the budget on this, and it made it a charming film. They did not care that they didn't have a lot of money. They made the money work. Is it rewatchable? That's a tough one. It's a tough one. Because as much fun as I had with the film, I don't know if I would have fun on a second viewing. I think it was a phenomenal one-time watch. Speaking of a one-time watch, and I apologize because I'm about to go on a little bit of a rant because of something I saw yesterday, right before I'm recording this video. I was trying to decide during this Vinegar Syndrome halfway to Black Friday sale. And I was trying to decide on whether or not I should buy this film, which I've never seen. And I'm very cautious on buying a film I've never seen. So I said, let me do a little bit of research. And more specifically, let me do a little bit of research on people who've bought it from Vinegar Syndrome. And everyone said the same thing. This film is a wonderful one-time watch. A wonderful one-time this film costs $45 plus shipping. You're gonna spend upwards of almost $60 to buy because that's what shipping they charge. By the way, shipping is only $4.47 for medium mail, but for some reason Vinegar Syndrome charges $8. Not a knock on Vinegar Syndrome, I'm just saying that's interesting. But you're about to pay $60 with shipping and tax for a one-time watch, and everybody in this group is okay with that. That's so bizarre to me. I would never spend $60 on a film that's a one-time watch and just put it in my library and never go there again. That's crazy talk. That's crazy talk. I bought this movie for, it was on the plastic. But I bought this movie for $2. $2. And I don't know whether I'll add it. But there are people who pay $60. I tell you what, let me know in the comments if that's you. I want to know the valid argument for adding a film to the library, because maybe it's something I'm overlooking. To add a film to your library that's $60 that is a great one-time watch. You'll only watch it one time. Let me know why that's a thing, if you could, because I really honestly want to know, not to have an argument or something. I just want to know. But back to Barbarella. Is it rewatchable? To be honest, I don't know. Is it possible for me to do a temporary hold on this one to kind of see if I want to add it to my library? Because I really honestly don't know. I don't know if it's rewatchable. I don't know if it's rewatchable for the sex kitten thing. Because the movie as itself, does it work? I mean, yeah, it's kind of campy, kind of cheesy. It does, but I don't know if I'd go back and watch it. I don't know. I tell you what. How about you guys decide? I'll let you guys decide. Leave down in the comments, because I really honestly don't know if I want to keep this one in my library. I'm kind of torn, because I did have a good time watching it. It is entertaining, but I don't know if it's rewatchable. I don't know if I'll pull this off my shelf again, pop it in and watch it. You guys let me know down in the comments. All right. So again, hit the like, hit the subscribe, leave me a comment. Let me know whether or not I should keep Barbarella, Queen of the Galaxy, in my very, very limited library. And until next time, keep finding good movies at great prices.